All right, welcome to today's episode. For those of you that are joining the podcast, I'm the Aryan Virk Agency. We specialize in helping B2B businesses scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, be sure to stick around and you can DM me free growth consultation in the DMs if you're interested. Today we have a really exciting guest, Mr. Manjot Singh, CEO of Summitedge. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure to be on.
Yeah, so let's just get this started with a quick background on Summitedge. What inspired you to create this company?
Well, entrepreneurship and like that whole bug has always been in me. So have always wanted to do something on my own. Even when I was in these Fortune 500 companies, I would work at very early stages within these projects and programs. Worked at companies like FedEx, a few startups, and then Amazon for about 8 years. And while I was there, would always chase the build process, the initial stages, that 0 to 1, and maybe 1 to 10 kind of phases of programs, products within those ecosystems. So it's always been a passion of mine to kind of get something launched and off the ground for myself. So when I had the opportunity, both financially and my own like connections in order to start something of my own, I went ahead did that.
Awesome. And then, being the CEO, can you share a little bit about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture with Summitedge?
Yeah. So current stage Summitedge is still very bootstrapped, early stage. We're very much in our growth stage. Thankfully, we have not been taken any sort of outside funding, so still own 100% of the company. And so because of that, the growth is not a hyperscaler or anything like that. We kind of grow very methodically and strategically. And as a role as CEO is more just a title. You kind of get to do everything. You're HR, you are, people management, people experience, you are hiring and firing and recruiting, you are operations, you are, sales, marketing. You kind of do a little bit of everything. Thankfully, our team's been growing. We're about 20 strong now, and I have folks that sit across the world. Most of my senior leadership team is in the U.S. or Canada. A couple of folks based out of India, but for the most part, we have consultants and we have regional presence in a lot of the major European countries, U.S., Canada, like I mentioned, Mexico, South America, and a few others, kind of in the Asia Pacific markets. So the growth has helped kind of take me out of the day to day, but
Yeah,
the what I still very much do is I still very much have my hands in a lot of things, at least from an oversight perspective.
yeah, it's nice. Once you grow, you don't have to be everywhere at once. You can give some of the different responsibilities to other people. That's definitely nice. And then with the main leadership role in your company, is there a specific way that you approach goal setting and growth planning for your business?
For me, it's like a prioritization model, right? And that starts with your customer first. So I always think about, where is our customer? What is the need for our customer? Working backwards from there, whether it's people, product, process, and then figuring out what that means for me internally. What I like to do as far as my leadership style is, oh, sorry, my leadership objectives are very much centered around where the next trends are going. And nowadays, with the advent of AI, you kind of really don't know. A lot of times, there's a lot of fast moving parts, and understanding the implications of what that means in your space in your industry is a little, it's the planning cycles when in the past they were kind of twice a year. um, Companies now are, and especially startups, are looking at it like once a quarter. I almost do once a month. So to not to get left behind. So I typically have a strategic meeting with my C-suite folks once a month where we're talking, strategy. What is our previous plan? We try not to go to a point where we scrap our previous, uh, you know, several months of effort. What we try to
Yeah,
do is, how do we continue to pivot, make small tweaks to stay relevant and ahead of where the market is.
yeah, and that makes sense. And then I want to kind of come back to the point where you said you are now 20 strong. Looks like you're growing, especially with them being in different countries. How do you keep your team aligned on the same with the same ideals, and how do you keep them motivated?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah,
Is it's I think it starts with finding the right people, and then being very critical when you know you don't have the right person, and so this type of world is not for everyone. There's a lot of, especially a lot of the time when my folks, for example, India and Sri Lanka are working, I'm not even awake, right? So we overlap for like 2, 3 hours. So I have to trust that they're doing the work.
absolutely.
You set up mechanisms, you set up touch bases, communication lines, but a lot of it is hiring the right person, right? And making sure that you're investing in them and you're providing the right level of guidance. It's that same concept, right? Teach a man or give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. They have to be willing to learn how to fish. And they will act on your behalf, right? You set the right expectations, you give them the right training, but unfortunately, I can tell you through this process, we've probably let go of as many people as we've hired. And that's something as a leader, you have to make a very strong judgment call, and you got to do it quickly, especially when you're in a startup. That when they look like a very nice shiny object on paper, and they spoke really well, and they were able to get through the interview process, and you onboarded them, but their skill set, their dedication, the level of commitment, their willingness to learn and adapt isn't the same as what they, told you what it would be.
Yep.
And then you need to make that move and pivot very quickly out of that person, because that will have a rippling effect on your team culture when they're looking at the other person doing half the work they're doing or not putting in the same level of effort. So building and cultivating the right team and the right environment for people to thrive is the biggest thing. And then setting up control mechanisms for information to come through your door rather than you trying to have to go chase things, right? So data visualization tools, different platforms where you can visualize, where the progress and things are, project management tools, things of that nature, where they can virtually communicate things to you rather than having to physically speak to you about it.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. Try to get them in and then hope that their actions follow up with what they said because everyone looks great on paper. That's that's what the resume is for. So, um, what has been your most successful growth strategy? And then are you currently more focused on acquiring new clients? Or are you trying to grow existing accounts? What right now is your plan with that?
As far as growth strategy, like the thing that I found to be most successful is being very critical about what your actual capabilities are, and understanding like what can you do to maximize in those spaces. So, an example that I'll give you is, very early stages, we just didn't have a CTO. It was me and my co-founder and one other person. We were very good at sales. We were very good and we understood our business industry, which is supply chain, which is where most of my background, most of my co-founder's background is, but we had no technical ability, right? So what we knew was we can handle this side of the business, but we there's no way we're going to be able to do, like, if a very technical project comes through the pipeline, that we're going to be able to handle it. So instead of worrying about trying to find a CCO, we went and would outsource that to other companies. So we found other people with that same talent that yeah, we had to pay a premium on at the time just to get those projects through the door, but we didn't let that block us. So being very critical about what your capabilities are as a team, and then finding ways to bridge those gaps is, and even if it is a kind of short-term stopgap, versus then understanding how do you fill that gap for the long term while to make it sustainable, right? Um, the other where we're at, I think so. I mean, I don't know any organization that isn't focusing on lead generation. So
Absolutely.
everybody is focusing on acquiring the next customer and the next customers. So if you they say in this industry, if you stop with lead generation, sales, and marketing efforts, you lose. So that's a big part of where I spend a lot of my time is how now that we've built products, now that we have a service offering profile, we have other things that tools that we can sell, consulting services that we can sell in the industry. How do we tell our story the right way? And how do we get our names out there to get that lead generation and drum up the right level of interest in the right spaces? So growth strategy, like I mentioned, is being very critical of your capabilities, figuring out where your customer needs are, figuring out ways to fill those gaps short term while building a sustainable long term business model to either hire or it's that buy versus build mentality. Right? Like, do you buy, i.e., partner with a firm that can do this for you, or do you build, meaning hire somebody, train them, and get them up to speed to do that for you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I was actually going to get into leads a little bit later, so we're going to circle back to that. I like that you said that. But for right now, with Summit Edge, what do you think that you guys do the best, and who would be your ideal client? Are you more strictly B2B, or are you B2C? Just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Our we're B2B, and sometimes B2E, but most of our clients are like B2B. So we focus on kind of so as far as like what our strategy behind that is we focus and we find our product market fit. We did an exercise very early on in our business when we first were starting up to understand where there was the largest TAM, right? So the total addressable market. And then we kind of narrowed that down to our SAM and then SOM, right? What is actually attainable for us, and what can we actually go and strategically attack? So we did not want to focus, and so like I said, we're in supply chain, so we didn't want to focus on what we consider the final mile because there's a lot of large players in that space. So final mile meaning warehousing and getting things to your door, right? So think of like Amazon, think of FedEx, think of UPS, USPS. There's just too many players with very, very deep pockets and large enterprises that have been around for very, very long. So we went further up the supply chain where more of the SMBs exist, where our area of expertise in our space of where we worked, like companies like FedEx and Amazon, where we could take that same experience but apply it to the space that we eventually landed on was international freight forwarding, so NVOCCs, forwarders, agents, customs agents, brokers, that type of world where it comes to international trade, specifically importing and exporting out of the US, Mexico, Canada, Europe, and UK, where we started with Canada and the US, and then we've slowly been expanding from there. And our latest kind of reach is now starting to get into the Middle East. So UAE, Saudi, and those types of Egypt, those types of worlds where it's kind of the Middle East, Northern Africa regions, where there's a ton of trade as well. But the real question was: is there an opportunity and willingness to pay. So countries like China, countries like India, although do have plenty of trade, the willingness to pay is not there. They just won't be able to spend the dollars it would take
Yeah.
for us for our services.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And then I actually kind of want to shift gears here a little bit just to the industry you're in general. Is there any major shifts you see going on right now? And then if so, how has that impacted your business?
Yeah, tons actually. So uh, first and foremost, international trade is very closely tied to policy that the U.S. implements, right? As we all know, this last administration has been, you know, time will tell on what these tariffs and trades will do over the long term. In the short term, the chaos that was created for a lot of countries halted a lot of advancements in business, at least for these companies. Like you don't want to do a digital transformation if you don't know what type of tariff you're going to be charging your customers 3 months from now.
Absolutely.
Digital transformations are things that stick with you for, typically after an implementation, you don't want to go through a process of overhauling that for another 5 to 10 years, if not more, right? Those are long-term investments. So in times of uncertainty, uh, companies that do like consulting services and digital transformations or products and services that are more on the technology side, um, they don't get as much investment. So what the idea was post COVID, there was going to be a significant drop. We knew that, and that's kind of right on the back end of that curve of that drop is where we started our business. Um, but what we didn't anticipate, which I don't think a lot of people could have anticipated, is what some of the challenges of the uncertainty that this administration has brought about in international trade. So that's been one of the bigger hurdles. Now that somehow some of it has been stabilized, um, you know, again, not to get into the politics of it, but
Yep.
like what the tariffs have set up, our time will tell there.
Yeah.
The other kind of elephant in the room is AI, right? I think we are one of the few organizations that, I mean, there's several organizations out there that are trying to solve problems in the supply chain space with AI. Um, and some of these more large enterprise companies have internal departments that are doing just that. Um, Flexport being one of them. Augur, was a ex CEO of Amazon that started that is trying to connect through technology the complexities of the international supply chain world. So there's a lot of companies out there trying to solve very, very large problems in the supply chain space through technology, more specifically AI. Um, and AI is broad, but like if you were to more on the prescriptive and predictive side of things. But so we have, but what we're tailoring and like I mentioned prior, our goal is SMBs, right? So we don't really we're not trying to take on the companies that are doing $1 billion in revenue, nor do we have the size or scale for that. And our target market is typically we have two. We have tools and systems and services for customers between that $5 to $25 million in ARR. We also have a profile of services and teams for very specific ERP implementations and products for that about 50 to 100 million ARR range. And now we're developing AI automations and workflows, which is our next wave going into 2026, is for that under 2.5, between 1 million and 2.5 to 2.5 million in ARR. And what we're finding is there are almost 10x the amount of people in that smaller bucket than there are even in that medium bucket.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more opportunity there. Obviously the lifetime value of a medium-sized customer is significant, but the lead cycles there, the sales cycles, I should say, there are sometimes as much as 6 to 8 months versus some of these smaller customers where it's 2 to 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act between, and so we do need a good flavor of each one. But coming back to your original question about the two big rocks have been kind of the administration's tariff policy, which has kind of shaken the industry up, and then the advent of AI, and then every company kind of sprinting to figure out uh, you know, where they're going to land in that space.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's well said. And then I did hear you mention those leads again, so I did want to come back to that, like I mentioned earlier. How do you currently find and convert your leads?
So far, a lot of our lead generation has been organic, where it's a referral or it's been,
Yeah,
we obviously have social media channels, we have paid advertising, but what we've found is the supply chain industry is very archaic in that way. The amount of folks embracing technology is there's like you'll be surprised. There's thousands of companies still operating on pen and paper and fax machines, maybe an Excel, right? Like there's not a ton like you would think that ERP systems are super sophisticated. They're not, right? And so like there's a lot of work to be done in this industry to um, modernize it from a technology perspective. So that's why we're in this space. So um, but yeah, so what we found is in-person events, like going to trade shows, going to conferences, getting a booth, or just attending and just meeting people live, setting up appointments there physically is a much people in this industry still like the face-to-face conversation, the high touch.
yeah.
You got to shake their hand, take them out
Builds
to dinner.
trust.
Yep, and especially when we talk about the SMB world, right? So that not so much. Some of them are okay with like these Zoom type calls, but uh, but especially the medium sized customers, yeah, you gotta fly out there. You gotta get in front of them. You gotta shake their hand. You gotta visit their board team, their senior team, then visit with their board of directors, and make sure everybody is comfortable with you and you go through a very long RFP process, right, where you're building out a proposal, bidding, and then you're narrowed down to the final one or two, and then decisions made. So there's a long process for some of these digital transformations, especially when the ticket is like 250,000 to $500,000. There's a lot of due diligence that goes into that. Um, yeah, so trade shows have been helpful. Now as we're kind of evolving our offering of services and products, as we continue to morph into that kind of under 2.5 million in ARR profile, we build products and services in that space. Uh, we are going to be launching special campaigns in association to those products and services, right? So these are for folks that are still on pen and paper or still on emails and Excel sheets. So those types of things, those types of customers have a lesser willingness to lesser dollar value or lifetime value of the customer, but it's still a very worthwhile endeavor. And the customer acquisition cost, both from a dollar spent and time, is significantly less. So that's a space that we're very intrigued by, and we're going chasing. And we're building our roadmap here for 2026.
Yeah, cool. So then I just have two closing questions, kind of my main questions I like to go to. The first one being, if I could give you, it's a little bit, unique of a question. If I could give you a magic wand to improve one part of your business, what would you choose?
A magic wand to improve one part of my
Yeah, one
business.
part that you're like magic wand, boom, make this perfect, or one of the parts that's
Uh,
maybe the most difficult, that causes the most issues.
yeah, I mean, I would say one piece that is always hard for businesses, especially startups, is your credibility and notoriety, right? Especially as you're starting out. Um, they say your first 10 customers are your hardest. We're well past that now, but even your first 100 are really tough. Like it's a very, very long uphill battle to win those first few, to then have enough like momentum to where people there's advocates in the industry that will tell others about your product and service, and then it's just a snowball effect after that,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So if you were to give me a magic wand, it would be to help us get over this hurdle of our first 100.
Yeah, I think from my personal experience as well, referrals are kind of some of the best customers because there's already that level of trust there before you even talk to them,
Yep.
right? So
Yeah.
that definitely helps. And then my last question to wrap this up is, what are your goals or your vision for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. 6 to 12 months, I fully anticipate that we have stood up another 3 to 4 products in the AI space, offerings one for the medium-sized customer and 2 to 3 for that small customer. And we've already gone to market with with these four offerings, and within 12 months to acquire our next 45 to 50 customers within those product spaces.
Awesome. I think that is well said. And then before we wrap up here, is there anywhere people could find you or some Edge if they have any questions? Maybe they're interested in what you're offering. Where could they be able to find you?
Yeah, so that we're on all social media channels, so you can look us up there. You can just Google Summit Edge, and we should be one of the first few search results on Google. Or you can go to www.summitedge.com, all one word, and you should be able to find us there. And I can share with you our LinkedIn page for our company, and if you want to embed that somewhere in the chat, you can do that.
Awesome. Thank you. This is Manjot Singh, CEO of Summit Edge. I appreciate your time, and this was great. Thank you.
No problem. Take care. Thanks,
Yep, you
Ari.
too. Yep.
Bye bye.